Next up, Marc Lauritsen.
So I want to tell you about an idea that I just can't stop thinking about. I call it choiceboxing, and it relates to the future of decision making. We spend a lot of time as lawyers making decisions, helping other people make decisions. Frankly, I think we don't do it very well. We make all kinds of mistakes. It's a frustrating process, and the world is not the place it could be if we had better decision making. We have lots of tools that can help us gather information, organize it, analyze it to some degree, but we lack really good tools to do this filtering and sorting, the actual selection process, in my opinion, that's so essential to a good decision. Whiteboards disappear. In 1985, I was a clinical teacher supervising students at the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, and we had a thing called Project Pericles. It was a new research program about technology of law practice. One of our first decisions was choosing a word processor. And in that day, it was tools like WordStar, Samna, Final Word. And this is a image of a typewritten chart with hand-drawn lines, looking at the features that mattered in those days. And we're only concerned with, does this product do it, but how much do we care? So you need to integrate the how much we care about something. We now do these things in Word tables. For instance, if you're comparing case management software, you might create a Word table and check off the features. But again, it doesn't get to the trade-offs. Well, how important is it that this has a good user community versus this feature being present? So you might move to an Excel spreadsheet and assign numbers. And I'm sure many people in the room have done this. You can now assign weights. You can get this sort of quasi-mathematical certainty to help you frame your decision. But again, it lacks the nuance of capturing the different perspectives, perhaps, that people in a group bring to a decision like this. So I was really thinking about 5 years ago, how do we build a universal tool that allows us to frame choices individually and as groups? And I came up with this idea of a choice box. This is kind of my base metaphor, which is a three-dimensional box that captures options, factors, and the z-axis is perspectives, different evaluative takes on a decision. Beneath it is this simple geometrical concept where you've got, in this case, say, three pieces of software, major things that differentiate them, and different layers, different views, and you rank or you rate the options in different kinds of scales. So in order for this to work, you need to be able to handle not only numbers, but various kinds of qualitative ratings. And so there needs to be some sort of normalization behind the surface. As you dig into these kind of problems, you discover a whole litany of issues that have to be confronted. But once you've got a basic framework, you can put it into a nice spreadsheet model, come up with everybody's weighted totals for their different choices, and gain some insights into how they're thinking, where a discussion is best focused. This is pretty useless, though, for a group. It doesn't jump out at you. It doesn't give you an intuitive sense of where the thinking is. So this is where my base model comes back. You take this three-dimensional model that's usefully sliced and decomposed in different dimensions. You can look at it from different perspectives. You can understand some of the dynamics of the decision. The question for us is, how do we build a sufficiently advanced, much more impressive, game-like interface that allows you to do this kind of a group deliberation intelligently? One aspect is to use this idea of volumetrics. So for each option you evaluate, you can express it as a chunk of goodness or badness. And you can put this into a framework when you look at a choice and you say, well, gee, obviously this option comes out best because it's best on the thing we care most about. And for some people, this becomes another mode of analysis that usefully enlightens our thinking. Now, the question in a minute is, how do we do this in law? Let me give you an example from another context. Somebody is choosing an apartment, just to illustrate the method. You're torn between various choices because one's close to the beach, but one's got a great view. One's got parking, but the other one has got much more reasonable rent. How do you do these trade-offs? These are endemic to almost any kind of decision we face in our personal and professional lives. So we built this very, very primitive prototype that allows you to do this kind of comparative analysis with sliders. We can play with how much you care, adjust the weights of the various factors. express one person's opinion versus another's, understand where you see things differently. The question is, can you turn this into a really cool next generation interface that is directly manipulable, lives on the web, shared across groups of people, and so we can say, this is where my decision stands now. Where do you stand? Can you help me? Can you advise me on this? If we think about the legal context, take an example like deciding between treating somebody as a contractor or as an employee. And right here, by the way, this is the idea of a choice space, a collection of millions of these deliberations in progress that live in some common repository where they can inform each other. But back to the legal example, can you imagine a future where the average person facing a legal issue could declare a space in the cloud and say, this is my decision I'm facing. Let me review with my colleagues. Let me review with my advisors. Let me express it in some visible way so we can deliberate about what most matters to me. You turn it into a grid, into a representation that's shareable, intelligible. What would law practice be in such a world? That's the connection back to Matt's original question. Would lawyers get in the business of creating these interactive devices for their own use, to share with clients? Would they sell them on the web? Would they put them up for free as reputation builders? Would they go into these choice spaces to understand how people think and to find prospects for clients? Thank you.